capital flows to deals. The money will worm its way and look for the deal and find its way in. Very hard to push deals uphill. Capital flows to deals. So how do you square these two perspectives? It's like this amazing investment in relationships and things happen, but also capital comes to deals. It's very hard to take deals to capital.
I agree. I think having the great network is great, but it's not sufficient, because the reality is you could have a terrible network, but if you have a very specific knowledge of a sector and you have money, you're gonna be able to do whatever you want. You see this all the time. We all know that person who's so well connected, but they're never monetizing any of the stuff that they do, because at the end of the day, like, unless you can really truly lock up a deal, or it's your company, or you are the capital holder, you know, when it comes to it, people maybe they'll throw you a bone, but they don't need you anymore, right? And so you've got to find a way to not just be the connector and know people, which, by the way, I mean, that's a valuable thing. It's clearly valuable, but you have to have more than that. Being nice is great, but if you're just nice, that is not sufficient to be like a very successful person. Like, people are like, oh, that person's so nice. Be nice and interesting, be nice and smart, like combine it with something else. It's just not enough at the end of the day to make sure that people want to have you in the room after you've done the job of bringing in the deal.
I feel like where we are right now is so important for everybody who is an aspiring deal maker or has been through a couple deal makers and feel like they have some perspective on it. I mean, I really feel like we're at the heart of the thin red line between success and failure. And that is that capital will find its way into a good deal, no matter what your breadth of relationships are, who you know, where you can get. I can get to anybody, but anybody can be gotten to with very basic methodologies that, you know, we try and show business people. You can get anybody, and, you know, today with LinkedIn and everything, you're one or two steps removed. But anyway, you can get to anybody, and you can get to anybody in a meaningful, high status way, not just kind of get your foot in the door. These random connections or these forced connections don't typically strike capital deals. Capital flows to very specific circumstances that are good deals for that capital bucket. And so then the investing time in relationships, like if you've got the deal, you can get in the door there anyway. When you think about venture firms, and I'll have you comment on this, when you think about private equity firms, you just think about investment. But when you're at those firms, your job is to find deals. When somebody goes, hey, you know, they're not replying to me, I got to find another way in. No, they're not replying to you because it's not a good deal for them. They are organized. Private equity firms are on a mission to find deals that they can get success with their firm. They need to get the money out. It's not like a bank where they're approving. They want to get the money out. They're looking for deals. If you have even a hint of quality, they're all over you. How do we shift people's minds away from reaching out and building all this, investing all this time in these broad connection of relationships and missing out on just forming a quality deal?
Yeah, listen, people pitch me on LinkedIn all the time. I'm sure you get these too, Oren. Like, you get this pitch message in LinkedIn, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. You've done no research on what I do. You've sent me a deal that I have no insight into. Like, why would you do that? I ask people, I'll write them back again. I'll be like, does this work? And they're like, not really. And I'm like, exactly, like, this is crazy. Why don't you get a couple customers, try to put some like sales together, right? So I find that a little mind blowing, but I would say, listen, here's the sad reality of this thing. You're pitching your deal, and you're right. Like, typically that's their job to find deals. And if they haven't responded, it's not because, sometimes it is because you sent it to the wrong person, or because people are so busy, they forget and it falls off. And like, you've got to sort of make sure you get to the right person and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably 10% of the time or whatever. But the other thing is, like, plenty of firms, by the way, they do receive great deals they should be investing in, but because of they're lazy, they're looking for people, like, they're like, we want to invest in founders that look like us, who went to these certain schools, that do certain things, and like, we're just not going to take a risk outside of that. And that's why you see the fact that, like, there isn't sufficient capital flowing into women and to people of color, like, because people have cognitive biases, and that sucks. But like, go to the people who are looking for the kind of company that you can present to them, because people at the end of the day, like, sadly, when they found that the formula that they think works for them, they don't deviate. And frankly, they don't even think about deviating because they're so stuck in their cognitive bias. And so I would say, yes, number one, recognize that certain investors, like, even if you show up their house, it's not going to be like and play, music outside the window, like say anything. You're not going to like romance them. Like that only happens in the movies. Number two, that there are lots of investors with lots of capital right now that are looking for deals, and you just need to do the research of figuring out how your deal corresponds to their company. And number three, when you show up, have something to show them, have traction, and spend less time cold calling Patrick and Oren on LinkedIn and more time trying to build your business so that you have something to show to the investors.
If you're planning to become a deal maker at this level, make sure to join the Daily Dealmaker. We get into one little piece of this daily, and so you're just stacking and stacking and stacking these tools and tactics and strategies until they come out of you as naturally as they come out of me and the people that I work with. Add the tips, tools, strategies, tactics a little bit every day, and by the end of a year, you'll be a totally different, new, improved person and a very strong deal maker.